Welcome back, everyone, to the 48 Minutes podcast from Believe, presented by Bet Online. I'm Bruce Bernstein, your favorite four-time Emmy Award-winning producer who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN, producing NBA studio shows, SportsCenter, and working with the best NBA analysts in the business. I'm joined by Michael Worldby Freer, himself a 2-time Emmy winner, who's a senior writer at StatFactor, where he creates research notes for many NBA announced teams around the league. And we're going to be joined today by a fellow Believe Network podcaster. I'm going to give him the big welcome after we do a little bit of business here. Just one quick note, our usual partner, Ross Geiger, is still in Europe, where he attended the wedding of Giannis Antetokounmpo over the weekend. So we're going to get a full report on that next week. But first, Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. Our guest today, Ryan Ward, has been covering the Los Angeles Lakers for LakersNation.com, as well as several other Southern California media outlets over the past 15 years. He's also our Believe podcast brother, as he hosts the Jello Jigglin pod, which focuses on the purple and gold. The Lakers are an endlessly fascinating franchise, and whether they're a championship contender or not, they remain a team with a worldwide following, and we'll be taking a deep dive into their situation today. So welcome to 48 Minutes, Ryan.
Thanks for having me, guys.
For sure. Hey, before we jump in, I mentioned this last week at the end of our show with Bill Pito. There's something I need to address right out of the box. Jello Jigglin. Could you please explain the significance of the title of your pod?
It's a Chick Hearn phrase. It's whenever the game was in the bag, he would say, the eggs are cooling, the butter's getting hard, and the Jello is jiggling. So it was just something that, I thought it was brilliant. And then one of my buddies was like, dude, I don't think this generation is going to understand what the hell you're saying. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right, but I don't care because I like it. I thought it was cool.
Cool. I knew that Chick had his Chickisms. I didn't realize Jello Jigglin was one of them. So, okay.
There's a lot, man. Slam dunk is one. There's tons of them.
Yep. Slam dunk was really, probably his number one, line ever. So anyway, first of all, thanks again for joining us. Everything with the Lakers begins and ends with LeBron James, okay? He turns 40 in December. He was just the Olympics MVP. He begins his 22nd season, and he continues to work on his game and take nothing for granted. Last year, his three-point shooting was the best of his career, 41%. So sorry, Michael Jordan, but I still feel and have for a long time that LeBron is the GOAT. Ryan, your thoughts on that particular topic?
Not my book, man. Not in my book. I think it's a generational thing as well. Like, it's like, some people growing up, Kareem was all about Kareem, and then, maybe a few Dr. J's out there, and then Jordan kind of took over, and then I think a little bit of Kobe, and now it's LeBron, right? So it's I remember watching Jordan back in the day, and I've got Jordan stuff all over the place in here, like motivational stuff. I just never saw anybody do what he did out there, and I still haven't. Kobe's the closest I've seen, and 6 rings, 6-0. Never went to a game 7 in the finals. Like, the guy was just incredible. It's a weird situation right now with the Lakers. It's like, it's almost like you have LeBron fans and Lakers fans, right? And they're kind of battling between the two because of this franchise is struggling and no one knows what the future holds. And they just drafted his kid and his co-host, podcast co-host. So it's a weird time. I think I've never seen so much negative stuff directed towards one guy. And he could make or break that this year. But he's never done something where I've just been like, okay, that puts him over. It's like, I remember here's a perfect example. Growing up, I was a Joe Montana guy, even though I'm a Raiders fan, which is like sacrilegious, right? But I was like, Joe Montana's the GOAT. There's just no comparing. And then Brady just went up and up and up and up. And I was like, at some point, I was like, there's just 7-4. Like, you just can't compare it. And he's got all the records, and he was able to play to 45. I thought that was incredible. And I think the difference between Brady and LeBron is the titles and coming through in those big moments when, yeah, LeBron's got 4, but how many finals did he go to and just flame out? It's just different for me. My generation's all about winning, right? It's winning is the benchmark. Now it's more like stats and accolades and like all this other stuff on top rather than how many rings and trophies you got. So it's a weird kind of generational shift. I can see people's point about, dubbing LeBron the GOAT, but I just don't agree with it. That's just my personal belief. That's all.
Now, Ron, you mentioned a few minutes ago about LeBron's son, Bronny. He was obviously one of the big stories in the offseason, not just with the Lakers, but with the NBA. And the fact that he's drafted by them. And, they're going to play together early, and obviously they're going to market the heck out of it as much as they can.
Not at all. Not at all.
But, it would be a surprise if he didn't spend some time in the G League to develop his game or whatever. What did you see in Bronny as a defender, a perimeter defender, where that was in the summer league? You heard that was where he could make his niche there as a defender. When you watch him in the summer leagues and stuff, what did you see from Bronny that makes you think he could have some staying power in this league?
I think that's the only reason he got drafted. It's because he's a good defender, or he has the potential to be a great defender, right? Which you don't get in the NBA these days, right? They don't grow on trees like they used to, or like, people don't pride themselves on defense anymore. It's more like how many, what's your 3-point percentage? It's not so much can you play on the other end. And now he's got that. And like, I think JJ Redick had a really good comp, like, or at least where he should shoot for is Lu Dort from OKC. And I was like, well, that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, he's not saying he's going to be, the next great two-way player in the league or anything like that. He's not getting pumped up to ridiculous levels. I mean, I think he's already been pumped up to ridiculous levels, but not to where like you're just like, no way that's happening, right? I feel for the kid. I really do, because I think all this pressure, it wasn't his choice, to have all this on him. He didn't pump himself up to, he's not super cocky. He's kind of quiet compared to LeBron. And he's got to deal with all this and wait till those lights come on in LA and he shoots his first air ball, you know what I mean? Or he has a guy blow right by him or dunk on him or something. It's just going to be rough, man. So I do feel for him, but if he can become great defensively, I think that's where he's gonna, really make his mark. But there's just no way of knowing. I mean, half the people think he's not even an NBA player, and then the other half, I think, are just kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt for now. And that's where you got to be. You got to be kind of, somewhat optimistic, but I guess a little bit pessimistic as well, because you just don't know what this kid is.
You think he can shoot?
I don't.
Do you think he can be a shooter?
I think he could. I think that's a skill you could develop. I mean, look at LeBron, right? Like, LeBron was a terrible shooter for a long time, and now he's formidable, right? I still think he takes some stupid shots sometimes, but he can knock him down way more than he used to. So I give him props for that. That's not an easy thing to do, especially this late in your career. But I mean, Jason Kidd kind of made that development too, right? In his career, he was an awful shooter, and then in Dallas, he was, blocked, he was knocked down. It's like these. I think the great players are the ones that realize, hey, look, I can't do this anymore, so I need to do this, right? It's like Kobe and Jordan, the tail ends of their career. It's like their athleticism was not the same. So they were back to the basket guy, fadeaways, footwork, all that stuff. And LeBron's kind of going that direction as well. So I'm just curious more than anything. I just want to see it, but I can't. If you were to go by stats and what we've seen so far, no, he can't do what we think he can do. I mean, it's pretty crazy to think about it. The kid averaged 4.8 points and coming off the bench for USC, and USC was terrible. like, what does that tell you? Like, and he gets drafted in the second round, like no problem. It's really weird. It's a strange situation in LA right now, but all we got is optimism. That's it.
Hey, listen, when your father owns the team, and I put owns in quotation marks there, all things are possible, including an $8 million guaranteed contract for young Bronny. But you know what? I
couldn't have signed that fast enough, huh?
Yeah, no kidding.
So quick.
But I will say this: when you're willing to grind it out on defense, you will gain the respect of your teammates, because not everybody is ready to go ahead and do that. So, and look, he's got kind of the halo effect around him of LeBron. I mean, ain't nobody on that team going to give that boy any crap, because they'll be hell to pay for anyone who does. And I just think they're more professional than that. So besides Bronny, you mentioned LeBron's former podcast partner, JJ Redick. He was the other big story over the summer. A rookie coach, not unlike Steve Nash in Brooklyn a few years ago, although while Kyrie Irving helped bring Nash down, JJ is LeBron's guy, so there's a huge difference there.
For now, he is. For now.
Right, until they start 3-11.
There's an asterisk there, like for now.
For sure. But, I really thought it was a great move by the team to hire Nate McMillan and Scott Brooks, as well as several others to be assistants. But, as you just sort of said, if the team scuffles out of the gate, is LeBron's backing going to be enough to keep the Wolves at bay on JJ?
I don't know, man. I mean, he's going to get the same kind of treatment that Bronny's going to get, right? Like, people are going to go in thinking he's going to be a disappointment. So, it's just another thing. It's like the whole. I cracked up when I saw that. I don't remember who it was that compared him to Pat Riley. I'm like, where are you getting this from? I don't understand this. Pat Riley won a title as a player and then worked his way up to get to where he was. He kind of lucked into the position with what's his face? I always forget his name. The guy who got hurt from the bicycle accident.
Yeah, Jack McKinney. Yeah,
McKinney. Yeah, and he kind of just got that opportunity at the right time after Westball kind of imploded. But I just that is a ridiculous comparison. Like, you can't put a guy up like that. The guy hasn't coached a minute on any level that matters, right? So it's just a crazy situation. I mean, sometimes I forget about it, and then when I think about it again, I'm like, wow, what is going on? What is going on? This is LA, like, where there's all these banners, there's all these retired jerseys and celebrities and legends in the stands all the time. And you got a guy who's never coached a minute that's going to be holding the clipboard. That's going to be accountable. He's going to be the fall guy if it goes wrong, and chances are it will. I hate to say it like that. I feel like such a pessimist this year, but I'm looking at, logic for one and the past for another. Like, I think ever since Phil Jackson left, a coach hasn't lasted more than 3 years in LA. And that's pretty telling, man. Like, and these are good coaches, Frank Vogel, Mike Brown. Like, it's just like, what, we bring in a guy who's got no.
That's pretty remarkable, considering they have a title in that stretch too. That
right, yeah.
They still haven't had a coach stick around.
I feel bad for Vogel. I think he got really shafted there.
Yeah. Go ahead, World.
One in a long line. As you pointed out. On the court, there's Bronny gets, we just mentioned about Bronny. He's been getting the attention for, off-season acquisition. But, the Lakers did draft what appears to be a pretty good rookie in Dalton Knecht. And I'm just curious what you thought of him, because, he's got some three-point range that this team needs.
Well, I'll be honest. When I first heard that he was drafted, this is the first draft where I've been like, I don't know any of these guys outside of Bronny for obvious reasons. And then we got Knecht, and one of our guys at the time was a big analyst guy, like draft guy, like knows all the college players and stuff. And he was just he was glowing. He's just like, oh my God. And I looked into him and I was like, yeah, this kid could be really good. I mean, he could be like Reaves, but better, which is crazy to think about. So I think I got high hopes for him. I'm excited to watch him and see what he can do.
All right, Ryan. So you just mentioned Austin Reaves. So one backcourt spot is pretty well set. But with D'Angelo Russell always available in a trade if anyone would have him, and so far nobody seems to want him, and Gabe Vincent returning to health, hopefully, to play this year, what does the rest of the Lakers' backcourt rotation look like heading into the season?
I think it's kind of in flux at the moment. I think them signing Max Christie to a 4-year deal. It's pretty telling. I think they're pretty high on that kid. And I like him. I think he's good. I think he just didn't get a fair shake under Darvin Ham. He just, for whatever reason, it was kind of weird because Darvin went into the season saying, doing this kid up and saying that he was going to play and all this, and he never really saw the floor at all. So I am kind of surprised that they signed him, but it kind of showed you, what they're thinking with him. And plus, I mean, it's not like people were running to sign with the Lakers, so it's not like they had a lot of options. But I think he's a good player, good kid, and I think if he gets the minutes, he might be able to show something.
Now, you mentioned Christie, who you like, and didn't see the floor as much as you'd like. He got the nice deal for, I believe it was 4 years, 32.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, something along those lines. Is that a deal that a team like the Lakers, is that a luxury they can afford with their cap space and their roster and everything? I mean, it's nice to have guys that you want to invest a future on, but at some point you run out of money in the cap rules.
I think they're in a position now where everything's situational, right? They don't have the luxury of making the choices that they want to make, like doing things that the Lakers want to normally do, go get a big name, go sign a big name, trade for a big name. They're really, I think it was like a shock after the season that they couldn't do what they wanted to do. And then you got all these other teams like the Knicks getting Bridges, you know what I mean? PG going to Philly. There's a lot I know there's other ones I'm just totally, spacing on, but
Klay Thompson leaving.
Klay totally just like not even being interested in coming to LA where he was born and bred, and like grew up a Lakers fan. That's pretty crazy. I mean, it's just all signs just showed you, hey, look, you guys are stuck. This is what you're going to have to deal with. So invest who you got in. And, you got 2 young kids coming in too. So, and, there's a Blake Hinson. He played for the Summer League team who got signed to, I don't think it was Exhibit 10. It was a two-way deal, I think. I really like that kid too. I think he's pretty good. I think he could be an elite shooter in the league. He's not incredibly quick, but I think he's, quick enough to get his shots off and, develop that and become something. So it's got that feeling of like, this is the last gasp of this era and a rebuilding process is about to begin. Right. And everybody's kind of like trying to hold that at bay and be like, no. But the reality's there. If you just look at it, step back and look at it, the rebuilding process is going to begin next year or the year after. I mean, I honestly would not be surprised if LeBron comes into media day and just drops a bombshell, says, this is it. This is my last year. And I'm done after this. Wow. Because look at the deal that he signed, right? He signed a 1-1, right? Everybody thought he was going to sign a 3-year and just get the most money he possibly could. He didn't do that. He surprised everybody. 1-1. I think this gives him like, okay, I'm going to play with my kid. I'm going to see if this team is actually worth sticking around for. And if it's not, I'm just going to walk away, right? But knowing LeBron and knowing how much he loves attention and like the spotlight, I think he'll want to put that out there before the season to get more butts in the seats and more attention on the team. You know what I mean? So I don't see him going through the season and then just walking away. It's like how we all laughed when last year he said that in the press conference after the Nuggets beat them. like, oh, I got to think about retirement. It's like, no, dude, you're not thinking about retirement. Nobody thinks you're thinking about retirement. You want the farewell tour that Kobe got, and D Wade and all these guys that you played with or against. So I think I don't know. It's going to be a crazy season. I think for better or for worse. It's just. I mean, I can't wait for media day. I think there's going to be some pretty crazy quotes thrown out there.
I think Ryan, when he said, "I'm going to have to think about this," I think that was his way of saying to the Lakers, "You drafted Bronny, right?"
Oh yeah,
and once that was like sort of like in the bag, it's like, okay, I'm done thinking about this. I'm good to go. So let's talk about the other superstar, Anthony Davis, who absolutely crushed it during the Olympics. He actually played in a career best 76 games last season, which is, obviously a big deal for him. So I think this is really the beginning of the late prime of his career, but he is still at the top of his game right now. I mean, he's peak Anthony Davis right now. And you mentioned a few minutes ago that maybe the rebuilding process is a year away. So do you feel like right now with what they have, this is AD and LeBron's last best chance to get one more chip?
Yeah, definitely. I don't see it getting better from here on out. The only way I see it getting any better is if one of the big teams in the league falls apart and somebody wants to go somewhere, right? Some other star wants to go somewhere, and then all of a sudden they just fall on the Lakers' lap. But the way things are going, it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So they just got to write this out and see where it goes. And I was super impressed with AD last year. I don't think he got enough credit for what he did, to be honest with you. I think he carried the team a lot of the time. And I think that's going to happen a lot this year, too. I think that LeBron will lean on him more. I think JJ Redick will lean on him more, even though I'm not quite sure how JJ Redick thinks about him, because I think he said that he wasn't a top 10 defender in the league when this guy's in like the top 3.
Yeah, what was that?
It almost felt personal, right? Like he was taking a shot at him. It's like, how do you leave this guy out? This guy and he's so versatile, right? Like he can go on the perimeter. He's not just a Gobert who's in the paint the whole time. This guy can do both. He can guard guards. He can guard bigs. He's a great player, great all-around player. So I don't get that. I mean, I think you're going to see a big year out of him because I think he knows as well. Like I think both of those guys going into this season said, this is it. If we don't make the best of it now, I wouldn't be surprised. AD, if they don't do well, he's like, okay, you guys need to trade me to Chicago or somewhere else because I'm just done. I can't do this anymore. Because he gets a lot of the crap. Once he gets hurt or something goes wrong, it's always him first. Like, oh, AD doesn't try hard enough or something, and it's like, I feel for him. But that's kind of what happens when you have a super duper star. The blame gets deflected to other players. Like with Kobe, even when Kobe struggled toward the end of his career, it was like all pointing fingers the other way, to all the other guys, Powell this or Lamar that or whatever. So yeah, I think it'll be a big year for him. I just don't know if they're going to be any better than say middle of the pack in the West because the West is just so damn good, right? They're so stacked they're so top heavy. And then the East only got better too. So it's like, I don't know. I get that it's kind of a generational shift too in terms of older guys like kind of on the way out and younger guys on the come up, right? You got Steph, KD, and LeBron kind of on the way out, and Anthony Edwards, Nikola Jokic, Luka, Giannis all on the way up. So it's like a time of change. That's what it feels like, in my opinion.
It's funny you mentioned because about the Lakers and how tough it is in the West. They actually, had a better record last season than they did the previous season when they went to the Western Conference Finals, and they end up going into the play-in event because that's just how tough it is. As far as AD goes, his game, you talked about the defense and everything. Offensively, the numbers continue to show that for him to be at his best offensively, he's really got to take his shot selection away from the perimeter and kind of be like more mid-range out. And he's been doing that more and more. He's kind of gotten away from the three-point shot, which was a big part of his game for years, but he's gotten away from that. For him to be a dominant player offensively, I mean, is it something as simple as that in his game? Like keep your shot selection from mid-range in, and you'll be back among the top 10 or 15 in the league?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just play to your strengths rather than trying to expand your game into something you're not great at. He's already tried that. I mean, AD has hit his ceiling, right? You know how good he can be. I don't think he's going to get better. I think he's just going to be what he is. So stay within that, right? Don't go above that. But I don't know, JJ Redick being a three-point shooter and like probably emphasizing the three a lot more this year, he might ask him to take more. I don't know. So
buckle up.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I say it could be such a crazy season, man, because you just don't know what the hell's going to happen.
All right, so Ryan, the supporting cast for this team, the Rui Hachimuras, the Delos if he stays on the team, and the other guys, is this supporting cast, in your opinion, good enough to help the big two grind their way through the regular season and the playoffs? Or do you think that in order for this team to really go deep in the playoffs, something's got to happen with some kind of a move before the trade deadline?
Yeah, I think as currently constructed, it's just kind of, like I said, middle of the pack, maybe a first or second round exit. And so that's what you're getting. I mean, unless you just get a huge season out of somebody that you didn't see coming, right? Like maybe Jared Vanderbilt gets healthy and he does what he can do, right? And he stays healthy. Maybe that's a game changer. Maybe D'Lo's hearing all this noise and he changes his game up a little bit. Or Austin Reaves or Max Christie. There's just so many, unknowns, and there's a lot of potential, I would say. But I would say if you're gonna just take it at face value, they're just middle of the pack right now. Somebody's got to step up.
Hey Ryan, how would you characterize Rob Pelinka's time as the Lakers GM? Does the championship in the 2020 season ultimately make it a successful tenure for him, or is it fair to question the franchise's status under his watch?
Oh, man, that's an interesting question, because I think I still can't get over the Westbrook trade, because that still doesn't make any damn sense to me in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know if that was a direct LeBron saying, I want that guy at all costs, make it happen. And then, recently Dwight Howard came out and said he blamed Pelinka for breaking up the 2020 team. And then when I started to really think about it, I was like, yeah, he did. And Dwight went a little nuts and said, oh, he broke up a dynasty. I'm like, dude, you won you played 50 games and in the bubble you won a championship. How's that a dynasty or a potential dynasty? Like, you had no idea what you guys were in a whole season, right? But that's Dwight. I mean, Dwight's on a whole nother level that way sometimes. But I did agree with him that was a dumb decision by Pelinka to don't fix what's not broken, right? That team was really good. Their size was incredible. Their defense was incredible. Vogel was a great coach of that year, and I think he proved it just that year. LeBron and AD just seemed to figure out how to play together like that. It was a great year. And then they just go and make these crazy moves. It's like as they say, I think Pelinka was feeling himself, right? He's like, oh, I see these, big names, Marc Gasol, Montrezl Harrell, Dennis Schroeder, all these guys that won like regular season awards or whatever. I'm just going to stockpile them on my team and we're going to be that much better. And then it just fell apart. It just was an epic failure. I think it was a lot to do with injuries, but still, it's like, don't fix what you don't have to. Like, don't force it. It's like, I didn't understand why they did that. And it makes it even worse now in the situation they're in. They have never gotten close to that kind of dominance again. Yeah, they got to the West Finals the year before last, but I think that was even kind of a fluke. I think that was the West right before it exploded, right? It exploded last season, and now you'll never get that kind of easy road to the finals again. Even though they hit a juggernaut in the Nuggets, but I don't the opportunities that he has missed. Pelinka it's been, and now I look at it, I'm just like, this guy got to go, man. Like I personally thought once Bob Myers stepped away from Golden State, he was coming. He was on the LA's radar, and I thought that was a part of the big plan. I even heard behind the scenes that was part of it, and then it just didn't happen. I don't know why it didn't happen. Maybe Bob Myers didn't like the offer, which seems to be something the Lakers keep doing. With Dan Hurley being the latest example of that. But I don't know, man. I say he'll always be remembered for that title, but if you think about it as a whole, like the moves he's made, I don't think he's a great GM. I think he's mediocre at best.
In Lakerland out there, you have another team, the Clippers, who have made noise in recent years. It's a nice rivalry, not necessarily on the court, as much as just for the back page headlines for this franchise, with the Clippers opening up their new arena this coming season. What's it like with the two teams out there battling for press, as it were?
Well, I think I guess you could compare it kind of to like the Knicks and the Nets. The Nets will never have the prestige of the Knicks. Even if they went on to win 3 in a row or something, they'd still be the little brother, right? Just never gonna get to that same level. And I think in the Clippers, it's even worse, because they've kind of been a joke, for a long time. Like, it's just like, oh, you're a Clippers fan. It's like, how many people do you know are actual Clippers fans? I think when CP3 left, it was like all of a sudden, it's just you could hear crickets and stuff. But I think the crazy part about it is the Lakers wish they had the money that Steve Ballmer does, and things would be a hell of a lot better, right? Because there wouldn't be such an issue all the time. I always trip out that, like Jeanie Buss is not one of the richest owners in the league because of how successful the team is. I remember during those last years of Kobe, I read somewhere that they were making $100 million in revenue every year consistently without a problem. And I'm like, oh my God, it doesn't matter if these guys win or lose. They're always printing money. But for some reason, they don't keep it, or they don't sustain it, or they don't grow upon it. I mean, but then again, there's Ballmer. It's just like, Clippers are his little plaything. Like, he's just like, okay, yeah, I'll build a $1 billion stadium and make the Staples Center look ridiculous. And then the Lakers go or crypto goes and builds the new scoreboard or whatever. And I'm like, are you serious? Like, I remember looking at it for the first time. I was like, what did you change? I can't even tell what you changed. Like, you're gonna compete with this, really, like, legit. And I was just like, that is like kind of the comparison of the two franchises, right? There's a lot of money over here, but they don't win. And there's not much money over here, and they got a reputation for winning. It's just a weird dynamic that's always probably going to be that way, unless the Lakers just go down the tubes somehow for, like, I don't know, a decade or two, and the Clippers just, rise. But I mean, that seems like such a crazy change. I don't see that happening at all. So yeah, they're always the little stepbrother,
It's kind of funny because if you break it down, if you look at in terms of, say, ownership comparison, Steve Ballmer is the big name right now over the Busses. It's just, he's got the money and he's got the reputation right now. It's a pretty good one in NBA circles. Compared with the Busses, where there used to be the infighting, it's just it doesn't. And I could be wrong. You can correct me if I'm wrong. It doesn't seem always to be the most stable within that family. But then you go down. You talk about GMs. We have Rob Pelinka. They have Lawrence. The Clippers have Lawrence Frank, who, whatever you think about him, you probably put him above Rob Pelinka, I would think. Yeah. And then when you talk head coaches, I think Ty Lue is, my opinion, is as good as it gets out there, and JJ Redick is a wild unknown. And yet, it's still a Laker town, and as you say, it always will be, no matter what they can do in LA to try and make themselves a better product. And they may actually be their product right now, but this upcoming season, notwithstanding, had been better over the last few years than the Lakers. and still it's Laker land out there. It was a good comparison you made with the Knicks and Nets. I think that's right.
I think the smartest move they could have made is move to Seattle, right? And just don't compete with but the thing financially, they're not going to make as much money, obviously, right? So it's like, I think Ballmer was weighing that because I think that's his hometown. That's where he's from, and he loves Seattle. And if they moved up there, they got an avid fan base that's been dying to have a team again. And then here, you're always going to be competing with something that's just you're always going to be in the shadow of. So I think he picked money over team success, I think, in a way. But with the Buss family, I think it's strange because this year is the first time that I've seen it where Jeanie is public enemy number one. She's always kind of gotten the benefit of the doubt and kind of, she's always the smiling face. She's a very nice person. I met her once in an elevator. Very crazy story, actually, with Phil Jackson in the elevator, giving me the stink eye the entire time. But I think now people are just like, what is she doing? Like she's just letting Pelinka and LeBron just do whatever, you know what I mean? And then just smiling and saying all the right PR things, right? So people are kind of over the whole Buss thing, and it's a shame, but it's never been smooth ever since Dr. Buss died. Not even close, man. It's been a rocky road, and it's never gotten to that point where you're just like, okay, we're good.
Jeanie is a wonderful person. I know Jeanie a little bit through my friendship with Linda and Kurt Rambis. Linda and Jeanie are like, besties, forever. And I've met Jeanie on a number of occasions, and she's a delightful person. But it hasn't been easy for her. She had to sue her brother a few years ago. They were having that whole power struggle over the team. But I think people don't really understand. You mentioned that the Lakers have printed money in the past. They're much more of a mom and pop operation than your typical NBA franchise is. They really are. I mean, the brain trust, I think, is a relatively small. It's not a corporate kind of a environment. And I think as a result of that, somebody like LeBron, I mean, Jeanie told us in a podcast a few years ago after the Lakers won it, we asked her, I said, is LeBron getting a statue? She said, oh, yeah, absolutely. LeBron's getting a statue. So, they revere him and they've given him all this power. And, but like a lot of great players, he wants to be a GM. But the perception is that he's really kind of running the Lakers at this point. I mean, is that how Laker Nation sees it?
Oh, yeah. There's been a ton of backlash. Like, it's gotten so bad to where, like, the guy I work with, Trevor Lane, he runs the podcast and everything, super popular, get tons of viewers and stuff. He's like, dude, the negative comments are just out of control. Like, no matter what we post, no matter what we talk about, it's like 80-20, 80% negative, 20, optimistic and like, cheery. And I think it's got a lot to do with culture these days too, right? People are just kind of naturally negative, especially when it comes to sports. It's like they look for the negative angle first, and then they'll go positive, maybe eventually. But this year, I've never seen it this bad. Even in the worst, even when the Lakers are winning 16 games in Kobe's last year, it wasn't even close to this. This is just more like you have something that you could probably make into a winner, but you're not doing the right things consistently, and people are just kind of over it. They're just like, that's it. I mean, I never thought people would be like showing LeBron the door during his stint here, but it's like 50% of Laker fans are like, I'm over this guy.
Wow.
Get out of here. Well, just because it's the same thing every year. It's the same narrative. It's the same story and the same result. They don't get back to 2020. And it's always like, we're never whole. We're always injured. It's like, well, it's like, you know what, dude? Every team in the league deals with all that, right? And they can somehow get through it. You can't just keep blaming things. It's like, the team's just not good enough. It's just not compared to the rest of the league. And if you notice the major difference from the Lakers to all the great teams in the league right now, almost all the great teams have grown organically through the draft. I mean, look at OKC, look at Minnesota, all organically homegrown guys, right? Lakers have had a reputation and success trading for big names and building around that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they draft well, I think the Lakers do really draft well. They draft almost more as these guys are assets than developing these guys, right? Because they come in and within 2 to 3 years, if they're good, they're trade bait for the next guy. It just happens every time. I mean, look at what they did. I thought they had a really promising young core with Brandon Ingram, Julius Randle, D'Angelo Russell, Clarkson, even other glue guys like Larry Nance Jr., Josh Hart, and they traded all of them, gone for one guy. And this is what you get. Yeah, you get one great season, and the rest is just like barely getting by. It's just. I think they're just kind of being exposed that way, and now they can't do it. They can't do what they're used to doing, trading for a big guy, and they don't know what to do. They're just like, well, and you get a crazy move like JJ and Bronny. Knecht was a great move, but I think Bronny kind of overshadowed it. It's like, oh, well, now they brought in his kids. So are they serious? I think that's what people are asking. Like, are these guys serious? Are they trying to win, or are they trying to just make money? And I think it's a very conflicting time for Lakers fans.
Yeah, you're kind of going where I was going to lead the next question here. What is the Lakers have always been a different franchise because they always like to have the star in place somehow. If it's not LeBron, it's let's go get Shaq. And they got Kobe. They traded for Kobe, but they got lightning in a bottle with Kobe. So he's about as homegrown as you get, even though they didn't draft him or whatever. But they're a star team. They like to have the stars. But the stars are getting older, as we talked about, and they're about to head out the door. So what is it? Do you foresee? Do you look at the Lakers and see they have an exit strategy for this era? Because it's hard to do. Franchises like the Bulls tried to have an exit strategy after Jordan, but it failed miserably, and they suffered for years. I don't know what the Warriors' exit strategy is. They're kind of in the same boat. Yeah. But the Lakers, it doesn't seem like there's any sort of exit strategy, like planning for the future once LeBron and AD are gone, which isn't too far down the road.
Well, there was a story that surfaced, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago by Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer, and he said that they're going after Luka when they get the chance, right? And I mean, that was such a obvious thing, right? Because he is the guy right now. And fans would fall in love with him right away. But it does go to show that they're not learning their lesson, right? They're not. I honestly think this team has to kind of hit bottom and build back up organically in order to get back to competing, right? And then, maybe draw glue guys here and there. But until that happens, it could be just more of the same, It's like, well, yeah, okay, get Luka, but then who's going to play with him? Who's going to be around him, right? Because they're thinking after LeBron leaves, right? Like, that's the next target. I don't think AD's going to stick around for that. He's not going to wait until they can trade for another guy. It's just, I don't know. Talk about an uncertain future. I just really don't know. I mean, the only way that I could really see this happening is what I mentioned earlier, is I think they just luck into another guy who gets disgruntled somewhere else. And it's never great to get a disgruntled guy coming on. I mean, look what happened with Dwight Howard in 2000, what was it, 12, 13?
Yeah, the first time around, yeah.
Yeah, he was pissed. And then he comes in, he just came off of surgery on his shoulder, and he was not even close to the same guy. And then he couldn't take the bright lights. That's another thing. I think a lot of guys come here, think that they're going to do well, and all the pressure and all the added media coverage is too much, and they can't handle it. I think that's what happened with Westbrook. He came in, LA guy, thought he could do it, and nope. I mean, not even close. I mean, that is one of the biggest fails I've ever seen the team make, And plus, he was miserable. He was a miserable guy to deal with, man. I really didn't like that at all. That was not fun.
Who'd have thunk it?
I know, right? Right? So obvious. But, it's like trying to hit Pelinka with an anvil and you missed. It's just, geez.
it's hilarious how much the way you talk about the Lakers, how much comparison it was to team. Well, I'm the biggest fan of the Knicks from until the last, say, 4 or 5 years. But that's what the Knicks hope on. LeBron James is going to sign with us as a free agent. Oh, we're going to get Giannis. That was the back page. That was progress for the Knicks. It's I'm going to get the big, and then they never come. The Lakers at least have that. They can attract a big name, but outside of Carmelo, the big name never comes.
Well, it's weird. It's like the popularity is the same, but the only difference is winning, right? Lakers have proven to win consistently for different eras, different superstars, but the Knicks, what do you got? 72, 73, right? And that's it.
Yeah. No, the Lakers have the titles. That's where it counts.
That's the only difference. But I think I love what the Knicks have done. I think they were fun to watch in the playoffs. I think they're going to be fun to watch this year. Brunson is an absolute stud. And they did the smart thing. They brought in guys that know how to play with him, right? Like, let's get the college teammates that he won a title with in college. Genius move. And it's working. I think they're going to be good.
When you stop trying to compete for the back page, your world in these major markets, when you're LA and you have the Clippers, when you're in the Knicks, you have the Nets and whoever. When you stop trying to compete with the back page, your world gets a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, they go with the Nets with the KD and Kyrie, and what a disaster that was.
Yes.
And Hart.
They were supposed to be Knicks. And they were supposed to be Knicks.
Everybody was saying, that's titles for years, and then just nothing.
Well, it did help the Celtics build a title because, I think
both
Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum came over as a result of that Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, Jason Terry trade back in 2012. All right. Old school Laker, Magic Johnson. All right. One of my favorite guys. I worked with him. I love him. If you ever have me on your podcast, I can tell you some great Magic Johnson stories about our days at ESPN. So we'll do that if you're up for it. Anyway, old school Magic Johnson. He got into it recently with Michael Worldby Freer's favorite guy, Anthony Edwards, talking about the skill levels of the old school versus the new school guys. Now, Magic Johnson was as skilled as anyone who ever played the game of basketball this side of LeBron James. Exactly. Ant needs to maybe watch some Lakers film from, let's say 1980 to 1988 when they won 5 championships in 9 seasons, and hope that Ant can achieve even one in his career. What was your thought on that whole thing? I mean, Magic said, I don't address guys who've never won a title. And of course,
which was
the guy
the best response I have ever heard. I was like, they shut it down immediately. But if I were to say this, Ant, you're young. Don't drink before you get on the microphone. How about that, kid? Like, it was the dumbest thing I've heard. I like him. I like his attitude, his confidence and all that. But after he said that, I'm like, dude, are you just saying stuff to say stuff? I don't understand. And then he said afterwards, like, but I haven't watched any of that or something like that. I was like, well, then how do you have an opinion? Like, if you haven't watched anything, that's like me going and saying, so-and-so is the best golfer in the world because I haven't watched the Masters once in my life. You know what I mean? Or PGA Tour. It's like the dumbest thing you could possibly say. It's like, I respect the kid, but dude, I hope you learn from this. This is like your what do they call it? The NBA moment, or, when kids get posterized or whatever, or welcome to the NBA moment. This is your welcome to the NBA moment from a media perspective, right? And Magic saying what he did, because I was like on the edge of my seat when I heard that, because that was the Stephen A thing, right? And I'm like, okay, what is he going to say? Please don't say anything stupid, Magic. Just say something really, really good. And I was like, damn, that was perfect. That was so epic. Watch, that's going to happen over and over. You're going to hear Jordan say something. Barkley's definitely going to say something. All these guys are going to chime in. I mean, it's ridiculous to say something like that. Hakeem Olajuwon wasn't skilled. Are you kidding me? Shaq, Tim Duncan, it's just
Larry Bird.
I mean, Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars. Right. I mean, come on. Just dumbest quote I've heard in a long time.
Even though Anthony Edwards is my guy here, and I've made it known for years about how much I like his game and all that. But I would like the record to show that when he did come out with those comments, I tweeted out that it displayed he had enough ignorance in there someday if he could fill the Grand Canyon. And I also believe with you guys that it takes a really special person. What made the whole comment gold was exactly what you said, Ryan. I didn't watch back then, but they don't have any. That's what makes it gold. And the ignorance competition, that was classic. I've never seen it, but
I think that's kind of a testament to how young people view things these days. They have an opinion before they even have anything to back up an opinion, right? It's like you don't know anything about the subject, but you're going to have an opinion on it. Like, you're going to get shot down and look stupid right away. Don't you realize that? Or maybe that's just a young thing, and like we all just learn from stupid mistakes, right? Hopefully he does, man. Hopefully he doesn't go the other way and just keep saying stuff like Gilbert Arenas these days. I'm like, oh my God, Gilbert, what are you talking about, dude? He's got good points over here, and then over here it's like, whoa.
Hey, I think Neon Trees is the best rock group ever, but I never heard the Beatles, so it's like. World B, we got time for one more question for Ryan. Then we're gonna let this
Ryan,
busy man go. What do you got? What do you got for our final question? You there, World B?
Talking about the Lakers here. Yeah. I was just going to mention how talking about the Lakers, there's always a comparison with LeBron and Kobe. You've gotten to witness them both.
Cover both. Yeah.
Who comes out on top between the two?
Kobe's mentality puts him on top, I think. Just the way he attacked everything was just so different. I mean, I mean, covering both of them, you can see the big difference, right? I mean, obviously LeBron's incredibly skilled and talented, and he's going to go down as one of the greatest ever. And if not, like in my book, it's probably the second greatest ever, if not, in the category. But Kobe was just different. I mean, he reminded me so much of MJ, and kind of like kind of a smarter, more calculated version of MJ, right? He didn't have the athletic ability and the natural skills that MJ did, or that LeBron has, but he was just an absolute killer. And the way he prepared and practiced, and the way he spoke, and the way you could tell the way his mind worked, it's captivating. I was scared to death covering that guy because I never wanted to ask a stupid question, right? I was like, I'm not asking a question unless I know for sure that it's never been asked and it is not going to blow it back in my face like crazy. I would ask the guys around me, like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And that's how I would gauge it, But with LeBron, it's just kind of like, I get the sense that he tries to pretend to be that, and he can't fully do it. He could do everything on the court, but he can't do the off the court things. Like, I've never been inspired by that guy. He's never done anything where I'm like, oh my God, that's incredible. I mean, he's done incredible things, but I'd never been like, oh, wow, I'm going to have to remember that. You know what I mean? Or this, or constant source of inspiration. I mean, what he has done is incredible, and it'll be remembered forever. But Kobe's he is like that kind of legend that literally never gets forgotten, right? I mean, the crazy part is like he goes into other sports and into other things the same way, right? Like, he inspires people that cook compared to playing basketball, or like, any other aspect of life that's that you want to aspire to get better at. You got all these quotes and all these inspirational things from Kobe that to absorb, and I just don't see that same thing with LeBron. I mean, like I said, I'm sure people cook me for that. They'll say, oh, well, you didn't hear this from LeBron or that. Well, it came off different to me. It just did.
Kobe is really kind of an eternal life force. I mean, he's been gone going on 5 years. It's still hard to believe that he's gone because he's still a part of every NBA fan. I mean, look, I'm a Celtics fan, right? But I think about Kobe all the time. It's like, gee, how great he was, and just how much we all miss him just as a member of the basketball family. And
there's Jason Tatum too. Like, he's
Yeah.
Does he get a tattoo of Kobe on his arm, or like a snake or something? He's got something.
Yeah, he's won a wristband with 24 in purple and gold during games.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you know,
that's like talk about sacrilegious. You know, a Celtics player wearing purple and gold on his wrist. I remember when I saw that, I was like, dude, you're gonna get ripped for this. You're gonna get ripped.
Hey, listen, you know what? The Celtics and the Lakers complete each other. I mean, I've been a Celtics fan my entire life, but I'm not a Lakers hater. Never was. I appreciate the Lakers. I've had many friends from the Lakers organization, colleagues, and just friends, you know. They're great people. It's a great organization. I highly respect them. And, you know, and I think if you scratch the surface on a lot of Lakers fans, I think some of them would even say the same about Boston. It's like, you know what? We measure ourselves against each other pretty much.
I always had respect for Larry Bird, more so when I really did deep dives into his highlights and stuff, and how he was almost a mirror image of Magic on the court. Like his passing, I never knew how good of a passer he was until I started looking into it. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy was incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, you got Luka, who I could say was probably the closest to him now, right? Would you say? The passing and the scoring. I mean, he's a bit better scoring wise, but that's just because he's shooting threes like crazy. But yeah, I got nothing respect for those guys. There's not a Celtic that I hate. I couldn't be like, oh my God, I despise that guy. I mean,
if you were old enough, you would have hated ML Carr. All Laker fans hated ML Carr.
I think Cedric Maxwell.
I can come up with a couple, Bruce. Don't worry. If Ryan can, I can certainly come up with a couple.
I think Cedric Maxwell is probably the guy because he liked to rub it in. I remember.
Oh, he hates the Lakers. I actually did a thing with him about a month ago at the Basketball Hall of Fame. It was called Who Paul Hangouts. And they asked me to come and like interview Cedric Maxwell in front of like a couple hundred kids, which was great. I had a great time. So I asked Max, I said, bigger rival of the Celtics, the Lakers or the 76ers? And he just looked at me like I was tripping. He's here. It's the Fakers, not the Lakers.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah,
he's the equivalent of James Worthy. I think like you can flip those guys, and they're kind of the same. I think Cooper talks a little bit more than James, but yeah, there's a lot of animosity still there, which is kind of crazy.
I love it. I mean, it's great. It will last forever, and
totally.
And really, it's just been a great rivalry, and I want to see the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals, and then I want to see the Lakers in the finals. That would be a dream season for a Celtics fan. Of course, we'd have to beat both teams, but that's nowhere near assured. Anyway, listen, Ryan, thank you so much. We've kept you past our 48-minute time frame. Thanks for going overtime with us. Thanks for taking time to talk Lakers. Everybody should check out Ryan's Jello Jigglin podcast on Believe and follow Ryan on social media at Ryan Ward LA on Twitter X and on Instagram. Thanks everyone for joining us this week on 48 Minutes presented by Bet Online. We'll be back next week. And Ross Geiger is going to rejoin us with a full report on Giannis's wedding in Greece. And he's going to tell us which Bucks teammates he's lined up for some future shows, if any. But I'm counting on Ross to have something there. So, Ryan, again, thanks again. World B, it's always great to be with you. So long, everybody. We'll see you next week.